In the past, I've covered various disconcerting and mysterious Reddit posts, and in today I'll cover a further 3. I feel like at this point I say this every time I come up with a new video topic, but I could totally make this into a series, as there is an endless supply of disturbing posts on the site, so let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that. Let's investigate. If you enjoy internet mysteries and generally disturbing content, feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications for more content like this. I also have a Patreon and a PayPal, so if you're interested in supporting the channel, feel free to check those out, links will be in the description. Or you can leave me a tip by clicking the thanks under this video. Thanks to anyone who considers this. This video will contain vague discussions of topics that some might find triggering. Viewer discretion is advised. You can head over to my Patreon for an uncut and ad-free version of this video, which features extra unsettling details and clips, and a whole extra entry that was unsuitable for this cut. This video is sponsored by Private Internet Access. VPNs have blown up in the last few years, and it's easy to see why. They change your IP address and reroute your internet traffic through an encrypted tunnel, which not only safeguards your online privacy and hides your activity from your internet service provider and government censors, but allows you to do things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. Private Internet Access has 50 servers in 50 US states and servers in various other countries too, allowing you to access local websites blocked in your area, avoid sporting event blackouts if your local network isn't showing the game, watch TV premieres before they go live in your time zone, and so much more. Private Internet Access works with all major streaming services, and it's one of the few VPNs that fully supports P2P file sharing and torrenting, making it one of the least restrictive. They never record or store user data, the no logs policy has been proven multiple times in court, and the VPN is 100% open source and the code is public, so anyone can take a look and see for themselves how secure and private the service is. The fact that it's highly customizable and allows you to protect up to 10 devices at the same time also makes it stand out from other VPN providers. The 30-day money-back guarantee means you can try it out risk-free, and in the unlikely event that you do run into any problems, the highly skilled customer service experts are available to help 24/7. If you click the link in the description, you can get an 82% discount on Private Internet Access, which works out at just $2.11 a month, and you'll also get 3 extra months totally free. I would argue that this post didn't exactly fit the subreddit it was posted in, oddly terrifying, as it's not really oddly terrifying, just purely terrifying. 8 months ago, a user shared a 47-second video with the caption, "Rabid fox wants to get inside." The title is pretty self-explanatory, but considering the video itself is a bit too graphic to show in this cut, I'll describe what happens. Someone is stood in a doorway, pointing the camera at a fox stood in the snow, which quickly turns and moves closer. Seemingly in a daze, it begins pawing at the doorstep, then gnawing on it, surrounded by what appear to be drops of blood in the snow, before stumbling into the porch, not even appearing to register the bright light emitting from the camera. The fox is clearly quite slow, and had it been much quicker, the person filming may well not have pulled the door quick enough to stop it going in and ultimately probably biting them. As the door is mostly closed, for the final 27 seconds of the video, which feels like a lot longer, we see a drawn-out shot of the fox chewing on the door frame and finally biting into the door when it's opened an inch more at the end. What's truly horrifying is that you can see a large gaping wound spreading from the fox's eye, along with other gashes around its face and mouth and blood all over its body. I can only describe it as zombie-like. There's not an overly savage or determined look in its eyes as you might expect if an animal was hunting its prey. They're just dead and empty, staring straight into the light like it's been possessed. Even with no prior knowledge of rabies, this clip alone would be extremely unnerving, but knowing how the disease progresses and the extent of the prolonged suffering it causes makes it absolutely petrifying. If you've been subscribed for a while, you might remember that I've spoken about rabies on this channel before. I think it was an episode of Strange, Creepy and Mysterious Things, or Medical Mysteries. Anyway, I read a comment that is always shared on Reddit whenever rabies is mentioned because it's a long and detailed explanation of what the disease does to the person or animal affected with it. There's no point me reading it again, but I'd recommend checking it out if you want a more in-depth analysis. I'll just summarise the symptoms and some details here. According to Mayo Clinic and the NHS, the first symptoms of rabies may be very similar to those of the flu and may last for days. They usually begin after 3 to 12 weeks, though can start sooner or later. They include high temperature, headache, feeling anxious and unwell, and sometimes pain around the site of the bite. Later signs and symptoms may include fever, headache, anxiety, nausea, vomiting, agitation, confusion, muscle spasms, aggressive behaviour, hyperactivity, difficulty swallowing and breathing, excessive salivation, frothing at the mouth, fear brought on by attempts to drink fluids because of difficulty swallowing water, fear brought on by air blown on the face, hallucinations, insomnia, progressive paralysis, and then almost certain death. Someone who has been bitten by a rabid animal can receive shots to prevent the virus infecting them. This has to be done as soon as possible, and it's nearly 100% effective. But once the symptoms appear, it's over for them. Only a couple of people have ever survived, and it's not exactly clear why, as there's debate over whether or not the treatment actually worked. I often forget rabies exists, but then every time I'm reminded of it, I get so paranoid. Even though it's not really a thing in the UK, there's only been one recorded case of someone catching rabies from a bat in this country, and it's been rabies-free since the early 1900s, apart from a relatively rare rabies-like virus in wild bats known as lyssavirus. No matter where you are, if you get bitten by an animal that you think could have rabies, or any disease for that matter, go to the hospital immediately. That's all well and good, but the even scarier thing is that you might not even know that you've been bitten. You could be walking through some overgrown grass, and a rabid bat bites you. Either you don't feel it at all, or you notice a tiny scratch and think nothing of it because you can't even see a bite mark. Then one day, possibly even years in the future, you get sick, and at first assume it's the flu, until it doesn't go away and rapidly gets progressively worse, and before you know it, you're in a hospital bed. Paralysis is setting in, you can't eat or drink or even breathe properly. The mere thought of water makes you gip. You're beginning to hallucinate, and with the devastating knowledge that death is inevitable, all you can do is wait for the disease to fully take over your body and turn your brain into mush until you no longer possess self-awareness of your own consciousness. So if you didn't already know how bad rabies is, now you kind of do, and you probably empathise with that poor fox even more now. As an animal lover, I found that extremely hard to watch. I can only hope its suffering was soon over. As for the person filming it, what a bloody idiot. Obviously the fox was already on their property and they likely couldn't have stopped it, but they probably shouldn't have just been stood there with the door open. They now have rabies all over their porch and door. Thankfully it doesn't last long outside the body, only a few seconds, but if the fox died there, it can generally survive for up to 2 days in its body, possibly longer because of the freezing temperatures, and I really wouldn't want to take that risk regardless. Just know MIL is a subreddit described as a place to post about your mother-in-law or mother who is just the worst. Come for support, come for advice, or just to vent and get it all out. That's what we're here for. There is an abundance of crazy stories on there, but one that always stood out was posted by user Your Coconut on the 15th of January 2018. It still pops up quite frequently in threads on disturbing stories and elsewhere on Reddit. In May 2004, OP gave birth to 2 twin girls, completing her perfect family with her husband, existing son, and golden retriever named Argo. It sounds like the birth and the first few days of the girls' lives ran as smoothly as possible, but when the twins were brought home, the oldest daughter by 4 minutes, OD, suddenly developed a rash. After ruling out the possibility of OD simply having sensitive skin by discontinuing the use of fabric softener, and even OP making clothes herself in case something in the manufacturing process was causing OD to react, they eliminated everything from their lives they could think of: shampoo, deodorant, soap. The younger daughter, YD, and older son, OS, were sent to stay with the husband's parents for a while until they could figure it out, and at one point OD had to stay in a totally clean room in the hospital. Eventually it was determined that OD was allergic to coconuts, which when the relief set in was almost humorous to OP, considering coconuts are used for everything in her culture. And when she was younger, her mother used to apply coconut oil to her hair, which she absolutely hated. Quote, "We had a lot of fun telling people about her allergy, and everyone laughed because they all knew about my hatred for coconut oil. We told my mother and she laughed as well. She made jokes about how my baby must have heard me talking about my hatred for coconut oil while she was still cooking inside me, and decided that she needed to hate it too. We all had a good laugh and left it at that. Or so I thought." Opie and her mother had a relatively good relationship, as in they got on, however they strongly disagreed on certain topics and as a result didn't really discuss them. Opie felt like her mother was proud of her, but knew she hadn't lived the life she was expected to. Rather than being a traditional religious daughter who married a man chosen by her parents and lived in the suburbs as a stay-at-home mum, she was atheist, determined to have a good job. She ended up becoming a professor, got married later than what is normal in her culture to a man who didn't exactly fit the criteria her parents set. Nevertheless, Opie's mother generally seemed to accept her parenting style and didn't try to meddle in or control the children's upbringing, with the exception of the coconut oil allergy. The twins had very curly and somewhat rough hair, and the mother insisted that coconut oil would help with that, though for the obvious reason, Opie refused to use it and told her in no uncertain terms not to either. On the 2nd of November 2005, when the twins were a year and a half old and their brother was 3, the mother ended up babysitting as Opie and her husband were both working late and their nanny was sick. That night, Opie called her mother to check on the kids. They'd gone to bed around 20 minutes ago, and after chatting for a short period of time, Opie hung up so her mother could go to bed. When Opie picked her husband up from the airport the next morning, they decided to go pick up the kids, then all go out for breakfast together. So at around 7:45 AM, they arrived at her parents' house, totally unaware of the fact that their lives had just been torn apart. Quote, "My parents weren't there. My son was at the neighbour's house and ran outside with the neighbour as soon as he saw his daddy and I pull up. He was hysterical and crying and I couldn't calm him down. My blood pressure was rising because now I'm thinking that something horrible had happened to my parents. My neighbour tells me that she isn't sure what's happening, but there was an ambulance at my parents' house at 6 AM and my dad had run over and woken them up to see if they could watch my son for a few hours until he got back. Of course they'd said yes. I'm calling my parents non-stop at this point and I'm getting frantic because I don't know what's happened. My son was still crying but he was calmer. He still couldn't really explain to me what had happened there. I honestly don't remember the details of what happened next, but somehow we figured out that the ambulance was from X hospital nearby and we broke several driving laws trying to get there. We got to the hospital, pulled into the emergency entrance that was for ambulances only, left the car and bolted inside. A few nurses took notice of us immediately and were asking us what was wrong. I was calmer than my husband at this point, so I explained that I don't know, but my twin girls and my parents were here somewhere. I'll never forget the look on that nurse's face. She knew exactly who I was in that moment, and she was about to cry. Another nurse took me and my husband to an empty room and asked us to calm down and listen to the doctor before we went to find my family. My mother had put coconut oil in both my daughter's hair when they were playing the previous day before bed. The girls loved it when my mum did their hair, and so they had asked for braids and my mum was doing their hair. She put coconut oil in both their hair because it would make smoother braids. According to my son, OD started to get a little dizzy and itchy when my mum was doing her hair, so my mum gave her some kids Benadryl which made her sleepy. Since it was close to bedtime anyway, the kids then went to bed. Giving her Benadryl was something we did whenever she had a mild reaction, since it usually meant she accidentally came across some coconut from a secondary source. We also showered her from head to toe immediately to erase any lingering traces of it. My mother simply gave her some Benadryl and kept the coconut oil in her hair and put her to sleep. The Benadryl made her sleepy and unable to wake up or be conscious enough to wake up her brother or cry. She vomited in her sleep and the rash spread all over. Her little body was swollen to twice the size. She had asphyxiated in her sleep. She died painfully and slowly in the early hours of the morning. My mother had found her when she went to check on the kids in the morning around 7 a.m. She was already dead by then. My mother screamed, called for my dad, and that's when they'd gone to the hospital. My dad hadn't known about the coconut oil until my mum explained, and to this day, I've never seen my father so angry. He was still unable to look at my mother out of fury, or me out of shame, when I saw him at the hospital. They had rushed to the hospital hoping there was some way to save my OD and get my YD checked out immediately since he thought she might have a mild allergy as well. I can't even explain to you the emotions my husband and I felt. I remember seeing my little girl and just being in denial. There was no way she was gone. This had to be a horrible, horrible nightmare. The following days, the funeral, and explaining to my other kids what had happened are events I still can't talk about because it just breaks a part of me. My mother was investigated, as was my entire family. I almost lost my kids to my country's version of CPS once because they thought my kids were in danger. My husband and I had to fight tooth and nail to show that uprooting them during this time would be the worst thing for them in that moment. My mother was never arrested. My father did leave her, though they're not officially divorced. The majority of my mother's family refuse to speak to her, and the few that do speak to her only do so on a limited basis. She currently lives on her own in a small town, and every couple of months I'll get a call from her telling me how sorry she is and how she just wasn't thinking, and can I please find a way to forgive her. She wants to come see me. The only thing I can find to ever say to her is, "You can come see me when you bring my daughter with you." What's so tragic about this story is that it was avoidable, and it doesn't at all sound like OP's mother actively intended on harming or killing her granddaughter. Was she arrogant? Yes. Was she an absolute idiot? Yes. But in all likelihood, that at the time seemingly small decision is the biggest regret of her life. And not only has her daughter's life been ruined, she has to live with knowing she killed her own granddaughter. That's not me defending the mother. What she did was absolutely unforgivable, but there are no winners here. An entire family has been ripped apart. I don't at all blame OP for cutting her off. Even if she knows what happened due to sheer stupidity and not outright maliciousness, I can totally understand never being able to let go of that resentment. And I imagine OP will never be able to see her as anything but the person who killed her child. The post continued. It's been 13 years. OS just got his license this year, and YD is going to start high school soon. Both of them are healthy and they're turning into amazing adults, but neither one has been the same since OD passed. OS is extremely protective of YS and doesn't allow anyone to breathe rudely in his presence. YS used to be so bubbly and such a talkative little child, but she's quiet now. When she does speak, it takes some effort to hear her because she's so quiet. She told me a few years ago that she knows she was only a baby when it happened, but she feels incomplete all the time, like a part of her is missing. I didn't know what to say to her. If it weren't for my husband, I don't think I could have ever recovered from the loss of my daughter. We have helped each other through the loss. It's taken over a decade of therapy to even get to this point. I don't know what I expect to get out of typing all this out, but I've seen how much comfort this subreddit brings other posters, so hopefully I find some of the same peace. OP stated in the comments that the entire thread has helped alleviate the pain of talking about her daughter. Although she'll never get over it, it's good to hear that things are a bit easier and she's finding ways to cope. The younger daughter and son are already traumatized enough by the event, so I dread to think how much worse it would have been if they were old enough to vividly remember it. A couple of weeks ago, there was an Ask Reddit thread titled, "What was the most disturbing Reddit post you have seen?" This thread was totally not where I found 2 of the 3 posts covered in this video. Anyway, one user commented this. I read a post where OP, male 30s, talked about how he had a half-loving childhood and how he realised when he got older how his mother was doing her best to raise him, but his father, that had 50% custody, abused him and would get him high, and how they would rob stores together, keeping mum out of the loop for fear of more abuse from his father. OP ended up in jail after graduating to armed robbery. OP described himself as short redhead with rosy cheeks. He went into detail about constantly being raped in prison. It got to the point where the only way out he saw was to start acting like he enjoyed it. He was then moved to a block with gay and trans prisoners to finish out his sentence. His last day in jail, he didn't know what to do or where to go. He didn't want to contact his mother due to a falling out they had over getting him a better lawyer. He started working at a grocery store and a 24-hour gas station. In between shifts, he would sleep in the gas station storeroom and eat day-old donuts and leftover hot dogs from the gas station, and fruit and vegetables that were going to be thrown out. When he got some money saved up, he was able to afford an apartment and some nice clothes, and ended up working as a salesman at a Chevy dealership. He talked about reconnecting with his mother, and said how his mother would always have a Christmas Eve party at our house with family members there, and he said he was going to just show up. This is of course a very sad story, the only redeeming part being that the OP of the post managed to turn his life around despite the odds being stacked against him, but the final line of this comment really brought it home. Christmas Eve at my aunt's, I met my long lost cousin. I've never told him about Reddit and never will. So turns out the commenter's cousin was the OP of the post they were talking about. Probably. Obviously there's no way to know for sure without asking him, and the commenter doesn't want to do that for obvious reasons, but the shoe fits. In another comment they said, "So I knew some things about him and had seen pictures of him at my grandmother's house. Most were of him from around the age of 13, and I knew he had some legal problems and did some jail time. So when he described himself in the post, I thought of him, but then I thought he would probably be taller as an adult, / what are the chances? We never really talked about him because it just never came up, and I had never met him as I could remember. Afterwards, I asked my dad about him and he confirmed some things. I didn't bring up the post, and I think it'll die with me. I'm about 90% sure it's him." The commenter said the original post, which was around 15 years ago, freaked them out so much at the time that they left Reddit for a while. So it must have hit them like a train on Christmas Eve when they put 2 and 2 together and realised it was likely their own cousin. They provided a bit more information in another comment. "So I asked my dad about it last night. Apparently my aunt and her husband, not his father, wiped out retirement and got a second mortgage on their house from a previous drug crime he committed. They put their foot down and cut him out. Also, he stole from my grandmother before this. One of the things he took was a watch that came with my family to the US in 1860. The watch was carried by my family members from Europe to New York to where we settled back to Europe during World War I. Then the South Pacific during World War II, skipped Korea, and was in my dad's bag when he was heading to boot camp for Vietnam, but cancelled when our involvement ended." This story really serves as a reminder of how small the world is, and that even when posting anonymously on Reddit, giving just a few vague details about yourself can end up revealing your identity. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts in the comments, plus any other unsettling Reddit posts you'd like me to include in a future video. Links would be appreciated, and let me know if you'd like me to mention your name as a thanks if I use your suggestion. Thanks again to Private Internet Access for sponsoring this video. Remember to click the link in the description to get an 82% discount, plus 3 extra months for free. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing, and leaving a tip by clicking the thanks under this video. Huge thank you to my patrons, whose names are on screen now. I really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Thursday in a new video.